Okay.
So now you can see my screen.
Yep,
Yeah, I think it's visible, right?
it is.
Yeah, this is the code we wrote last time when we discussed the final keywords. And as I told you last time, the next topic is exception handling. So today we will talk about exception handling and what is exception, how to handle an exception, and how to use a try catch block you asked about to handle an exception. What types of exceptions in Java? So all this we'll talk about today. Let me ask you, I always want to ask you about your information. What do you know about exception? How can we define an exception?
How to make an exception. If an error is made, then if the computer makes an error, then try and catch will override it.
Yes, there's somehow, yes. Like when you write your program, okay, you always expect it to work normally and give you the expected output. But sometimes, okay, there is unexpected uh, problems that may happen, okay, while your program is running and interacting with your user. This problem, okay, will block your program from being executed normally as expected. So it will make a sudden crash your program and your program will stop and no longer continue its normal execution. Okay, like your code will break at some point, okay, and it will not continue executing and it will throw an exception telling you that there is a problem happening. Okay, so this is the exception. It's an unexpected behavior that may happen during uh, your runtime of your program. Okay, so of course, this is not what you want as a programmer to let your uh, program may throw an exception to your user. So you should handle this exception so your program will not break. And even in this case where exception could be thrown, you will handle this exception so your program will continue execution. Okay, and the user will have a better experience, like the program will not stop execution. Okay, uh, the user will not face any unexpected behavior from your program. So this is the idea about exception handling. You understand?
Mhm.
So this is the definition about exception. Let me remind you of something. I remember that when we were talking about inheritance and casting, we have an example of a case where we it may throw an exception. Let me just open this now. I think it's here. Yes, it's here. Do you remember this case? Like here in some class, I have a method called show my person. Okay, I have a person class. Okay, so I get a parameter of person object to this show my person method. Okay, and inside this person method, I expect that this person that will be passed to show my person will be a student. So I declare this student object my student and I initialize it to the P parameter I'm getting here. Okay. And we said that this line might cause an error because sometimes I may pass a student and sometimes I may pass some other persons who are not students. Do you remember this case?
Yeah.
Yeah, like here, I called show my person, but I passed employee. Employee is still a person, so I get no compiling error here while coding. But when I run this program, it will throw an exception. Let's run and see. Like here, I will run. I have some problems here. While explaining the final, we wrote some. Let's run again. Look, my program was working fine. Student say hello, person created, my address is blah blah blah, like from display address. Okay, all this code was working just fine. Okay, but once I called this show my person, okay, and I passed an employee, while this show my person method expects a student, not an employee. So this line here throw an exception. Like here, last output I get when my program was running, I got person created. Okay, person created, it's called from here. When I try to create an employee, so this constructor employee called person created. Okay, but here this line throws an exception. It expects a student but got employee. So it gives me an exception, telling me exception in this thread. What is the type of exception? It's telling class cast exception, telling you cannot cast an employee to a student. Employee and the student are completely different persons. They are persons, but they are different. Student is different from employee and vice versa. So it cannot be cast. So this kind of exceptions that might happen. And this type of exception is class cast exception. Okay. As you can see here, if my program had to work finally, it should print my student ID. If this exception didn't happen, my program should display my student ID. But here, as you can see, I didn't get any student ID. Why? Because once the exception happens, automatically my program terminates. It never continued to execute once the exception happened. And as you can see here, this exception is not handled. Okay, so exception is thrown and my application crashed. So any other code like will never run because my program is already terminated. This is not the kind of experience you want to give to your user. So what should we do here to handle this exception? As you can see here, while discussing this point before, we put a to-do like we should make exception handling here in this part. So how can we handle this exception?
try and catch.
You have an idea? Yes, exactly. I will put try, block, and catch, block. So what is try and catch? Simply try will run the piece of code that I'm suspicious about that it may cause an exception while my program is running. Like you will get this by experience that there is some operations in code, they are very common to throw exceptions. Okay, like for example, database operations. It might throw database exception. So this kind of code, okay, is a well known that it might throw an exception. So it should be handled like this with try and catch. Like whenever an exception happen, it should be catch in your code. So your program will run normally and the user will not notice that there is something got wrong in your program. Okay? Okay, good. So here, what is the suspicious code that could throw an exception? It's this line.
Student.
Yes, this line here where I expect that the argument here, the person is a student, but actually I got an employee. Okay, so this is the line that throws the exception. So I will just cut this line. I will get this line also in the catch block because if the exception happens, this line has no use, has no meaning. So I will put all of them, okay, in the try. And then here in the catch block, here I should put exception. Okay. Here I should put an alternative scenario, okay, that should be executed if the exception happens. In my case, to make it simple, I will just print the statement. Then say, hey, you can employee and the student are not the same. Okay. So here, if I run my program again, look, now my program didn't terminate. Okay, it's working just fine. We didn't get all this big error with red font, you know, and we got person created and then, hey, employee and the student are not the same. Why? Because here I'm passing employee while it expects the student. So yes, the case where the exception happened, it's done. So yeah, now we will execute the catch block. And here at the end, I will just put you another statement, like here, end of display show end of show person message. This just to prove to you that even when the exception happened, my program still catch it and continue executing normal. It not crash, it not terminated. So here I will run again my program. Look, person created, the exception happened, so I got to this code in the catch block. Okay, employee and the student are not the same. Then I got end of show person message, which proves that my program just running fine and it didn't get terminated unexpectedly. Okay, you understand?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here I will call show my person again, but this time I will pass the student, which is like the one that expected in show my person, and I will rerun my program. So yeah, I called show my person twice. First time I passed interview, which caused the exception. So I got the catch block executed here. Interview and the student are not the same, and end of show person method. Again, I got show my person one more time, but this time it got what expected. It got a student. So yeah, it runs normally. Here's a try block. Okay, and I got my student ID is 345. And this, of course, catch block didn't get executed. And then lastly, I got end of show persons. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
What does P mean in the methods? Okay.
In the,
You're asking about this P, right?
yeah, P, yeah.
P here is just the argument name or the parameter name, okay, that I expect here. It's a person, it's of type person, and I can give it here any name, like P or PI or person
Okay.
or person one. Whatever name I give, it's okay. It's just a parameter, okay, of type person. But this person, I cannot change its name. It will turn to an error because this person is a class, okay?
Yeah.
So I should write it the same as it is here. I cannot change it. But this parameter name, okay, I can give it any name I want. In this case, it's P. I can change it anytime if I want. Okay?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay, good. So now you know about exception and how to handle an exception.
Is there a more simplification for it?
Excuse me?
Like a more simplified explanation?
More simplified
Yeah,
explanation.
instead of like method, maybe a variable.
How? Like we still didn't finish. Like
Oh yeah.
we're still gonna talk about exceptions. Like before we continue, I want to make sure that at this point everything is clear.
Mm-hmm.
Exception, okay, is unexpected problems that happen in runtime while your program is already running and interacting with the user. Okay, and this exception will cause your program to suddenly terminate. Okay, and it will give unexpected behavior to the user. Okay, how to solve this? It's by exception handling. How to handle an exception? It's using try and catch block. In the try block, you put the code that you are suspicious about. It may cause an exception. I write it here in the comment. Here you put the code your issues. About it may cause an exception. Okay. In the catch block, of course, you put an alternative scenario to execute if the exception happens. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
Normally a print statement.
Sorry?
Normally a print statement.
Not
Print.
only print statement. No, you can put anything you want. Depends on you, on your needs, what you're gonna do. But here I want to make it simple, so I just put a print statement. But you can put another, another logic here. You can put some more complex block of code here in the catch block. It all depends on your needs and what you want to achieve. But I don't want to make it complex. I just make it simple. Okay?
That makes sense.
Okay, good. So, yeah, is it clear?
Yes, makes sense.
Okay, good. As you can see here, I put this catch block. Okay, I put exception. Okay, and exception is a class. Okay, and if you remember, what kind of exception we got here in this line when we passed an employee? Do you remember the type of exception we got here from this line?
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah,
was class cast exception. Okay, so means that we have many types of exceptions in Java. Some of them are pretty common. Some of them are like rare to happen. So we will talk now about some common exceptions that happen frequently, okay, in Java projects. Do you know any types of exceptions in Java?
Like what kind?
Tell me, do you know any kind of exceptions?
Error.
Error is not an exception. Error is completely different thing. What is exception? Types of exception. Like I give you an example of class cast exception.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Do you know? Do you have any idea?
What kind?
I just want you to know that all exceptions in Java, okay, are children or subclasses of this exception class.
In arithmetic.
Okay? This exception, it's a class, okay, in Java. Yes, here. It's a class called exception. All other kinds of exceptions are children or subclasses of this exception class. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Yeah.
So here in the catch block, okay, I can catch any exception thrown in this try block. But I can change this to a specific type of exception, which is class cast exception. Okay. And if I run my program again, I get exactly the same result. Okay, good. Because yes, true, I know that this code will throw class cast exception. But you know, I will make now a small change here. I will not pass an employee anymore to this show my person. Okay. And you know, here I will make a difference. I will say int x equal integer dot parse in the line. Okay. So this code here in this line, I'm trying to parse a string to an integer. Okay. So this usually happens when I have a string of example 345. Okay, it's a string, but these characters of the string are actually numbers. So I want them to be treated as numbers. So I will call integer.parseInt. So this string will be converted to a real integer where I can next perform some operations, say, for example, x plus plus. Okay. And then I may display value of x equal x. I may do something like that. Like here, if I run this program, look, I got the values before I get my student ID, before I get end of person, show person method. Because I put this code above my student ID, display student ID, I got this output. Value of x equals 346. How did I get this value? Here I passed 345 as a string, but I made it like as an integer using parseInt. Then I increment by 1, so 345 became 346. I displayed the value of x, then my method continue running normally. I got my student object and I set its value to the p I'm getting here as an argument, and then I show my student ID. What if instead of parsing 345, I will parse plant? What will happen? Here I have a catch block telling this one, and I run my program. Oh, look, it got terminated again, and it throw an exception, telling me exception, blah, blah, blah. Look, what's the type of exception I got here? Number format exception. But look, oh, what's the exception I'm trying to catch here? It's class cast exception. So pay attention to the exception type you are trying to handle or you are trying to catch. Because this catch block will only catch the type of exception you specified here. Here I specified the type as class cast exception. Class cast exception, it didn't happen here because this code that might throw class cast exception, it runs fine because I pass a student, not an include. But I have here another code that might throw another exception of the type number format exception. This number format exception, it's not code here. So yes, my program crashed. Understand?
Mm-hmm.
You understand, right?
Yeah, that's cast as an exception.
Okay. For the case of simplicity, I will just, make this line an exception again. So exception is each and every exception that could happen in Java. So if I run my program again, I didn't change anything apart of exception. Okay, we will see that there will be a difference in the output. But before I run my program, I want to tell you something. Like this exception happens, okay, this lines, this red lines, it gives you some information about the exceptions that happened. Like here, it's telling you the type of exception that happened, which is in our case number format exception. And also, it gives you information about what line of code that caused this exception. Like here, as you can see, this one in blue, okay, is telling us about the lines that caused the exception. If I click here on this in blue underlined piece of code, okay, yes, made me jump to this line, number 33, in our inheritance main class. So inheritance main class, line number 33 is the line who caused the exception, okay? So yeah, whenever you see exception here happened in the console, it gives you some information about what caused the exception and how to solve it. Pay attention to this information, please. Okay, you understand?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So now I will run my program again. As you can see here in my try block, I have some 4 or 5 lines of code that may cause 2 types of different exceptions. These 2 lines may cause class cast exception, but this one may cause, or to be specific, this line may cause class cast exception, and this line may cause number format exception. 2 different types of exceptions. I made a change to the catch block to catch any exceptions that might happen. Okay, and I will run again my program. Oh wow, look, I didn't get any exception and my program finished execution normally. And here I got this catch block executed, a employee and the student are not the same. Why? Why? Because I got a problem here in parsing this blend to an integer. So this line caused an exception and it's code here and displayed A3 and this will return another. Then end of show person list. You understand?
Mhm.
So far so good.
Mhm.
Okay, good. So next we will talk about uh, types exceptions. Okay, and we will know the most common exceptions that you may see frequently. Okay, this we will do next. You want to explain more about class cast and number? Okay, don't worry. As I told you, we'll discuss now about types of exceptions. So yeah, don't worry.